What's up? Welcome to the Outcast Creative channel, where we're doing a very special episode of Chew the Fat, where we talk about a film or a TV show in greater detail than normal. I am your host, Lance Nielsen, for this evening. Still recovering from my recent bout of pneumonia, so I am slightly under the weather still, but better than I was. But fear not, because if I have a coughing fit, the inside man will cover for me.
Good evening. How are you?
Hello.
How you doing? How you doing?
I am better than I was, but I am
Yeah.
still not 100%. So yeah, but that's unfortunately par for the course with this kind of thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
we're gonna get into the two Sweeney films. I've watched them both today. I own the Blu-ray of Sweeney 2 anyway. And
Nice.
yeah, I mean, well, maybe we should talk about I think we should talk about the TV series a little bit first, because
Yeah.
the movie, the first movie, which was filmed in 1977, was shot, I think, either just at the end or during the filming of the third season. I
I
think
believe.
during
Yeah.
filming of the,
I think you're absolutely right on that. Yeah.
yeah. So so for anybody who doesn't know, the Sweeney is a British 1970s cop drama show. I think it's probably fair to say that it was the first sort of police crime drama that had a bit of grit, because before this, what did we have? We had Dixon of Dock Green.
Yeah, we had Dixon and Doc Green. Then we had Z cars, or
Z cars.
as our American cousins like to call it, Z cars.
Yeah,
And after that, there was a spin-off series called Softly Softly, if you remember.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
I think Sweeney had aired, though, by the time Softly Softly came out.
Yeah, this was quite a turning point, I think, in British television as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, I remember, because it started in 75. I wouldn't have been allowed to stay up and watch it when it first aired, but by 77, 78, I always remember when I heard the theme when it was playing. I don't know what night of the week they used to show it, but I would always come running downstairs, and sometimes my parents would let me stay until the first ad break.
Yeah.
And I tried to sort of do that same tactic I did with the wild geese: stay quiet and hopefully they'll forget I'm here.
Yeah.
So focuses on two members of the flying squad. For anyone who doesn't know what the flying squad is, Inside Man, do you want to sort of give a brief overview?
Yeah, the flying squad is it's kind of akin to special branch. They're a very specialist. I suppose today we'd call them elite investigatory unit of the British Metropolitan Police. And the reason the show is called the Sweeney is Cockney rhyming slang. So it's Sweeney Todd Flying Squad.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were quite a specialist investigation unit, and it would tend to be violent crime, like armed robbery, kidnap, that kind of thing. Very similar to the special branch, but with fewer powers. And yeah, the special branch were almost a law unto themselves at times.
And I think I'm right in thinking, was it not members of, there was a high profile member of the Sweeney who got done for corruption
There were, I mean,
around the
I,
77, 78 time, wasn't
yes,
it?
it was. Yeah, in the sort of mid 70 period, 76, 77, 78, there was a massive overhaul of these senior members of the Flying Squad Special Branch and the Metropolitan Police that were on the take. There was a lot of corruption. Brilliantly illustrated, I think, in one particular episode of Our Friends in the North.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and but it was a bad time for the police. We had, this isn't an all-encompassing comment, but some members, particularly senior members of the police in the Metropolitan Police, were known crooks themselves and would consult with known criminals, members of the underworld. And they weren't particularly nice people. There was an awful lot of fit ups, or fit ups as we call them, where evidence would be falsified, statements would be falsified, and people would be wrongfully convicted in order to get that conviction, and of course appease the public by overstating the clear up rates. And
Yeah.
there were some members of the Sweeney involved in that. Yeah.
Thank you for the comment, Lost for Words. I don't think I've seen you in the chat before. So John Thor is a legend, Morse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually got a book written by Neil Root. I still haven't read it yet because it's in my stack of books to read. And it's called hold on. It's called, here you go, Crossing the Line of Duty: How Corruption, Greed and Sleaze Brought Down the Flying Squad. And I thought that the topic of the Flying Squad as a drama made now would be a really interesting TV show.
Yeah.
So the reason I bought that book was as part of my kind of research for that topic. But no sooner had I had that idea than another script writing job came in, and I jumped on that instead because that film looked like it had more chance of getting made. So, but yes, the Sweeney ran for 4 seasons. The total number of episodes was 53, and it was during the production of season 3 that they decided to make the first feature film from Euston Films, which was just called Sweeney. Now, as Inside Man mentioned on a previous show, in fact on the Nielsen ratings, the Sweeney started out as a 90-minute television film, which was called Regan, which was actually made in 1974. That film, you can find that it is around.
It's readily available on YouTube. It's very easy to find.
And that's written by Ian Kennedy Martin, who is the same guy who created the show. The theme tune is composed by Harry South, and the budget for the show was £40,000 per episode, so roughly the same budget as my film The Journey per episode. So there you go. And of course, the other stars of the show were, in addition to John Thor, was Dennis Waterman. Garfield Morgan was sort of the main actor that played their boss. And then you had sort of various other recurring characters and squad members. But yeah, Frank Haskins was their chief inspector, their sort of DI.
Great character.
Yeah, he was quite funny, and he seemed to get parodied a bit in the television series Minder. Yeah, which was also Euston Films, I think.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So same company. Yeah, guest stars on the TV show featured a huge range of British actors, including people like Patrick Troughton, Peter Vaughan, Richard Wilson. There was an episode that Morecambe and Wise.
That's right. Yeah.
I think playing themselves, if I remember rightly.
That's correct. Yeah.
You had Maurice Reeves, Linda LaPlante, Ronald Lacey, Sheila Gish, Julian Glover, Ian Hendry, John Hurt, Ken Hutchinson, Geraldine James, Michael Affleck, Leslie Ann Down, Diana Dawes, John Rhys Davis, James Cosmo, George Cole, who of course would go on to play Arthur Daly in Minder, Brian Blessed, Tony Ann Holt from Space 1999, Josh Ackland. This is to name just a few of the people that would appear in it. And it also featured in one of its episodes a very young Ray Winston.
Yeah.
So quite a few well-known people.
Yeah, I mean it's a stellar cast when you look down that list of supporting artists or supporting actors that had appeared in the TV series. It's phenomenal the amount of recognizable names that there are there.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, I always remember, ones that I always remember is Tony Selby was one that always seemed to crop up, in either the Professionals, Minder, or the Sweeney. I think he's probably made a few appearances in each of them. And George Layton was another one that always seemed to appear in multiple episodes,
Yeah, George Layton. And there are quite a few interesting faces in the two movies as well, which we'll come on to now. But just to give some backstory. Lost for words. Thank you very much, man, for the super sticker for $1.99. Very much appreciated. You're right. It is the dog's bollocks cold outside. So stay inside and stay in the warm with us as we get into the Sweeney. You can see that they are available on Blu-ray, but I think at one point it was all available for free on Amazon, but they appear to have lost the license because I tried playing some episodes earlier today and couldn't get them to play. And this licensing notice came up. So, but when you watch the Sweeney and you watch the two films, you can even see it on this cover here. The aesthetic of London back then is very much concrete jungle, grey housing estates, the horrible new architecture of the South Bank, which was, it kind of blends in nicely now, but back then it was this horrible sort of grey monstrosity and a series of connected walkways and blocks, and really did give London a very depressing look, which works for the gritty aesthetic for this show because, as we're saying, it was the first cop show, the first British cop show that really had some grit. I mean, Z Cars and Dixon and Doc Green was all very much kind of Bobby on the beat.
Yeah.
Evening all, yeah. What's all this then?
Yeah.
It's all warm
night, warm night.
Yeah.
All that kind of
yeah. So but the Sweeney was it was, men being men, lots of scenes in pubs and lots of smoking.
Yeah.
So
lots of cigarettes, lots of beer, and lots of calling the fairer sex birds. Yeah, lot of that. All filmed on location in London, pretty much. Although the second film also shoots in Malta, but we'll get into that. When it was released, it was heavily criticised for the levels of violence, and it was one of those things where there were complaints, but it was also extremely popular. So it was. I think it was kind of the ITV. It was definitely their sort of cornerstone show, wasn't it? It was. This was the one everybody kind of gravitated towards. I mean, bearing in mind that at the time, as you know, we only had the 3 channels at that time.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was a toss up between something very light and very twee on BBC One, something very boring and not particularly educational on BBC Two, or something tough and gritty and fun and violent on ITV.
Yeah.
So it was a no-brainer.
So I think they followed this. ITV's next major sort of cop show after this, I believe, was Taggart. Yeah, and that was a good show. I mean, my parents, they liked their crime drama stuff. They went straight from this to Taggart. And by the time Taggart came on, I was allowed to stay up and watch it.
Again, you're right. That's a very good connection, because I would suggest that Taggart owes an immense amount to the Sweeney.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. It wouldn't have got commissioned without the Sweeney's popularity.
Absolutely.
Definitely wouldn't have happened. And I think, it was very successful. I think the BBC, they responded by creating a show of their own, which was called Target. It was like a British police action drama series set in Southampton, starring Patrick Mower, who's oh man,
who, funny enough, was one of the regulars on the Sweeney.
Yeah, I've got thoughts about him as an actor. I don't know whether I should share them publicly.
No.
Well, he seems like a very nice man.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget an interview where he was being interviewed. I want to make sure I want to make sure I'm 100% on this was him. I might be getting him mixed up with someone. Hang on. No, I don't think it was him. So, because what was the? Do you remember El Dorado, the BBC?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
sort of the soap set in Spain.
I do indeed.
I don't think he was in that, was he? Not seeing it coming up on his credits. He was in Bergerac, which was around that same sort of time. But I'm not seeing. Anyway, okay. I'll tell that story another time because I can't attribute it to Patrick Mower. I thought it was Mower, but anyway, yeah. Target was created by Graham Williams. It had Philip Maddock, Brendan Price, Vivian Helbrun, and it was, it was basically about the 13th Regional Crime Squad, and Williams was an editor on Z Cars, and it was heavily criticised because it was like the Sweeney. It was violent, right? But unlike the Sweeney, it was on BBC Two. So of course, the taxpayer. License payers could write and complain, whereas ITV they couldn't complain to anyone.
Yeah.
So it was. They had 5,000 letters of complaints. The Target got pulled after 2 seasons and 17 episodes, whereas the Sweeney carried on. I'm kind of keen to see an episode of that now.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing an episode. I'm sure there must be some available on YouTube, but I always think that if you're trying to create something that's going to be a response to somebody else's success, it's pretty much dead on arrival.
Yeah, that's never a good that's never a good idea. Good to see you, Wormy. How's it going? RRTNZ says, I used to work with a former Met detective, in brackets, definitely not me, I'm talking about someone else. He worked in the London in the 70s and 80s. He could have been a character of the Sweeney. He often suggested to me that the stories weren't that unrealistic. I'm sure they weren't. I mean, it was the reason that the Flying Squad was created was because the 60s and 70s, saw a new breed of criminal. Criminals were getting more violent and crimes were becoming more serious. And that's why that unit was created, to tackle, that scourge of crime, as it were. All right, let's get on to the first movie. Here it is. So, I'm not going to go through the plot for both movies in details. A brief overview is that it starts with possibly one of the worst acted scenes I've ever seen in anything. If you know the scene I mean, with the high class lady being drugged and whatever. Yeah. And that opening scene and the opening 3 lines, I'm like, my God, the acting in this is absolutely diabolical. It's so kind of, it's like they're on stage performing a farce, you know?
Yeah.
Like Jumpers or sort of something like this. And I did think, oh, yeah, this bit's not aged very well. But it soon, I mean, it's this script is clearly inspired by the Profumo affair, which is basically a British Conservative politician of the time ended up sharing the bed of
Christine Keeler.
Christine Keeler. I'm not going to call her a cool girl because I don't think that was ever really established. But she was also sharing the bed of a high-ranking Russian naval intelligence officer, something like that.
Exactly that.
Yeah. So, you know, pillow talk and all the rest of it, highly compromising triage there, as it were. And that led to the downfall of the Conservative government at the time, and was said that maybe, you know, decisions could be being influenced, you know. So this is kind of a similar setup where this guy who is a politician's publicist, played by Barry Foster, who's the sort of main antagonist in that, and people may remember him from The Wild Geese, but he's doing in a slightly dodgy American accent here. He sort of sets up this politician played by Ian Bannen, and it's all to do with OPEC oil, whether they're trying to influence the price of oil going up or down. And he has these kind of hitmen on hire, so anything that gets a bit too close to the knuckle, because there's some press sniffing around for an interview played by Colin Welland.
Bless him.
Yeah, so yeah, who would go on to, didn't he direct Chariots of Fire?
He wrote Chariots of Fire and won an Oscar for original screenplay.
That's it. Yeah.
He was the one that famously stood up on stage and said,
"The British are coming." Yeah.
And then nothing happened for years.
Well, I mean, it's good to know we don't suffer from premature ejaculation. We took our time, but we're everywhere now on the American screens. We did it. We just, you know.
Yeah.
It was a long time. Yeah. It was a long strategic campaign.
It was.
But I do remember that. Yeah, because that sort of that statement kind of rankled for years to come when it sort of didn't materialize very quickly.
Yeah.
The other actors in this are Diane Keane, who plays like a high-class schoolgirl. There's a very brief appearance from Brian Glover, who people might remember from Alien 3. Linda Bellingham is in it briefly. Nadeem Swahala is also in it briefly as the chairman of the Oil Producers Conference. But basically, Nadeem Swahala was the go-to actor if you wanted someone to play a dodgy Arab in either a James Bond film or, well, anything really in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
He's a great actor, actually.
He's a terrific actor. He really was a wonderful actor. Yeah.
I think he's still with us. He's 89.
Is he really? Wow.
He's still with us. Yeah, because he's the one in Spy Who Loved Me who's kind of, he's got the microfilm, isn't he?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, father of Julia and Nadia Sawalha.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and he is still with us. So, yeah, well, good on you, sir. So he's in this. So it was released just after the 3rd season, as a money-making big screen outing for what had become an extremely popular series. It did pretty well at the British box office. But they had to sort of recast a couple of the roles, and the film also straight off the bat includes like nudity and quite a bit of graphic violence, and it was an X certificate when it came out. And by the way, I didn't see this film until after the second one.
Exactly the same with me. Yeah,
because the second one got quite a wide release on VHS.
Yeah.
The first one, not so much. It was harder to find. And it might also be that I think maybe I've saw the Sweeney 2 on TV. I can't really remember where I saw it first. But the film, as David Wicks, the director, says, the film made a fortune. The profit made by EMI Films was 1,000%. 10 quid for every pound they spent on it. Excuse me.
That's I mean that's a fantastic statistic by any standards.
Yeah, it's not bad, is it?
No.
Not bad.
No. But I kind of I thought the story was actually okay in this. I thought it was relatively well written. I thought the violence was was exactly what I had expected, exactly what I was hoping for. I don't think there's anything more fun than on-screen violence, because you know that that's just where it is. It's on screen.
Yeah.
It felt like a proper extension of the TV show. It in essence, I think this one did feel like it was an episode, that it was a lengthy episode of the show. I actually rather like Barry Foster in this. I mean, he does play.
He's good. I like him as an actor. Full stop.
Yeah, I mean, he is sufficiently slimy, isn't he? He's not. He's not a particularly pleasant character. I mean, as you say, I mean, he played a quite a good character in The Wild Geese. Some people
half these amounts if the mission fails. That's absolutely outrageous. One of the best lines.
Yeah, but of course, playing the killer in Frenzy as well, Alfred Hitchcock's Frenzy, in which I thought he was brilliant. I think it's a severely underrated and underwatched film.
Doesn't he dress up as a woman in that?
No,
I might be getting that mixed up
with possibly with Dress to Kill, because there are some real similarities, because obviously Brian De Palma wanted to be Alfred Hitchcock, but there are some real similarities between the two movies. But Barry Foster, I think he was one of those actors that just wasn't quite big enough to star in a movie, to carry a movie on his own, even though he did star in the TV crime show Van der Valk, in which he was very, very good. But I liked him in this. I liked his his punchability in this. I just you really wanted to punch him in the face, which is always good when you've got a slimy actor. When you've got a slimy character played by a good actor. If somebody of his caliber can carry that off, then Ian Bannen again, good. I think maybe slightly underused. Ian Bannen. Would have liked to see more of him.
He's got sort of. Ian Bannon's got like three scenes. I mean, Barry Foster, never short of work. He never stopped working as an actor.
Yeah.
Right up until the end, I think he was still working. Ian Bannen, people will probably remember him from Braveheart.
Yeah, more notably, you're right, Braveheart.
Yeah.
Or the grandfather in Hope and Glory.
Oh God, yeah, he is, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's the film where they constructed the street on an airfield.
That's right, absolutely right. Yeah.
I remember seeing that at the cinema.
Yeah, same here.
Oh my God, how do I spell Bannen's surname?
Bannen.
Oh, there we go.
I think it
It's
is.
En, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because his last film was Waking Ned Devine.
Oh, right.
I remember that. But yeah, I mean, Ian Bannen had been like a serious, stage and screen actor for donkey's years. And I mean, there's a good shot of him here in he's on the right in this picture in The Hill, 1965.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, Sean Connery.
Fantastic.
So I see Ian Bannen on the right, Michael Redgrave on the left of the Redgrave acting clan dynasty. There he is, there's Ian.
Yeah.
So he is the leper in Braveheart, who's convincing his son who to fight for and sowing seeds. Hey, Dan Candy, how's it going, buddy? Good to see you. So, let's talk about other cast members. There's one actor. I think he's in the first film, but he's not in the second film. Who is? Wait a sec. I'll tell you. No, he's in The Squad. Really tall guy. I might be thinking of. Let me just check.
I think
I'm thinking of Derek O'Connor, who was in Sweeney 2. We'll come back to him.
Right.
But there's also Nick Brimble, isn't there? Isn't Nick Brimble in the first film? And he played. He was in Kevin Costner's Prince of Thieves as Little John.
Oh my goodness me!
Yeah, he's just one of the squad members in the Sweeney movie.
Yeah.
Let me get it back up here. See, there's not many stills for the film on IMDb, which is a bit annoying. But I guess they probably didn't produce that many because they smashed it out so quick.
Yeah.
No stills photographer on set. Daryl Johnson is watching the Sweeney first episode now.
Nice. Well done, mate.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the actress Diane Keane, who plays Bianca, who gets, comes to a bit of a sticky end. She's still alive. She's 78.
Is she?
Yeah.
She was quite lovely, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so. She appeared on stage in 2013 in a British tour of the Vagina monologues, funnily enough.
Wow.
And she announced on her Twitter in 2023 that she had suffered a catastrophic stroke and was lucky to still be alive.
Well, bless her.
I wonder if she's still on Twitter now. I mean, I'm going to have a quick look, because if she is, I'm going to post quickly and I'll tag her in this. Because I've been trying to track down. I've actually looked to see what members of cast are still living.
Yeah.
And there are members of cast still alive from both films, actually. Amazingly, even though nearly all the lead cast are sadly no longer with us. Sometimes I have to remind myself that Dennis Waterman is no longer around.
Yeah. It's staggering, isn't it? When you look at all these people that we've grown up with and admired over the years, and to know that they're no longer with us. But on the other hand, they are still with us. They'll always be with us. As long as we keep watching their work, they're always with us.
Yeah.
With Diane Keane, though, I mean, from a very young age, I had a massive crush on Diane Keane. I just loved her. She had these lovely deep brown eyes. She was really quite lovely. I really had a big crush on her.
Well, I have found her on Twitter, and I'm just gonna post under her latest post, which is about the LA fires. But so yeah, there we go. So you never know; she might suddenly tune in.
That would be lovely.
Looking at her other work, I mean, I know she appeared in things like Touch of Frost and stuff like that. Because I feel like I've seen her in something else. Oh,
Was it the Cuckoo Waltz? Didn't she? It was a sitcom. Was it with Martin Jarvis? I seem to recall.
She was in the Cuckoo Waltz. Yeah, British TV sitcom set in Manchester. About two newlyweds, David Roper and Diane King. And they're taking a lodger to ease their financial burden, who's played by none other than Lewis Collins. Yeah. So
how strange, how utterly strange is that? I mean, I was talking to Northern English Bastard a short time ago.
Yeah.
And happened to be talking with him and Fandad Menace about Lewis Collins, and they were trying to fathom out, what other stuff Lewis Collins has been in that they remembered. And of course, I'd completely forgotten that he was in the Cuckoo Waltz, that he was the lodger.
Yeah, I did see some episodes of that. Oh, he's doing Road Warrior tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you can watch episodes of the Cuckoo Waltz on YouTube.
Right. Okay.
I'm just yeah. The opening. These are the opening titles. Hold on, let me. Don't know. I might get copyright flagged for this, but we'll see. So this is the. I think I definitely saw episodes of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not part of the actual opening site. Here we go. Yeah, remember that logo well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, I remember this tune.
Yeah.
Very twee.
Yeah.
I think I wonder what happened to David Roper. Look at that jacket. Only Lewis Collins could rock that jacket. I mean, yeah, there's whole episodes of the Cuckoo Waltz are on. If you feel so inclined, you can. But I think the other thing I saw Miss Keane in, Diane Keane, was I want to say 13 at Dinner in 1985.
What the Agatha Christie
yeah,
adaptation?
Hercule Poirot with
Peter Ustinov.
Yeah, and funnily enough, this is the one that Ustinov made. That's also got David Suchet in it.
That's right, and I think he plays Inspector Jack, doesn't he?
He does play Inspector Jack.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it's funny, isn't it? And it's like later he got promoted.
How bizarre! And it's very similar to I think it was an adaptation of the 450 from Paddington with Margaret Rutherford as Miss Marple, and it was Joan Hickson who played the housekeeper, and obviously went on to be famously playing Miss Marple in the classic BBC TV adaptations of the Agatha Christie Marple stories.
Yeah, this whole time of the 1970s was kind of full of sleaze stories of the whole thing with Philby and of course people were being persecuted for their homosexuality. And it made them very prone to being blackmailed and so on. And that tactic was very common with the security services and stuff like that. So threads of that kind of undercover work and things going on here. I think the thing that annoys me about this film a little bit is we see these bad guys go round. It's never quite clear to me who Johnson and Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're never quite clear to me. Are they mercenaries for hire? Do they work for a particular department? You know, but they do appear to have kind of a slightly unrealistic level of carte blanche of being able to go anywhere and kill anyone at any time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see at least one of them get killed in that team, and we don't, and that annoyed me a little bit.
You know, I think they were quite ambiguous with maybe, as you say, their identity and, you know, who they're working for. You know, are they part of special branch? Are they part of the security services? Are they guns for hire? Are they you know, assassins for hire?
Yeah.
I'll tell you who they reminded me of, and they really reminded me of them. The two characters in A Clockwork Orange. It was when Alex is released, and he comes across he's found by his former enemy Billy Boy and his former droog Dim. And when they find him, they just reminded me of Billy Boy and Dim from A Clockwork Orange. You know, there was that sort of insane and cackly, you know, a bit odd, you know, quite weird guys. But I'm sure they were very fine actors.
The actors, funny enough, I was keen to see who these people were and what else I'd seen them in. And a couple of interesting things came up with that.
Right.
So one of them, the one who plays the guy who's dressed up as a traffic warden, because it's weird. There's two of them who turn up as policemen and kill the guys in the junkyard.
Yeah.
All three of them, which seems very heavy-handed, because if there's only one guy shouting his mouth off, why would you go down and kill other people with a machine gun? I mean, you know, you'd want to be a bit more discreet than that. They could have taken him away for questioning and just gone and killed him anywhere.
I think just quickly interjecting, I think Ingrid Pitt sort of emulated those exact lines in The Wild Geese when she was demonstrating the Ingram machine pistol.
Yeah.
This is a 9mm Ingram.
No, you mean Who Dares Wins?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, when she's training the terrorists in the farm.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And she says, you know, this is a 9mm Ingram. It can fire 1,000 rounds a minute. Is one hell of a weapon. It's pretty much word for word.
Yeah,
but
firing short controlled bursts. You know, I think that's another part of it. Well, the blonde one, who we can see in the poster, is just above the letter W. He is played by Michael Coles, sadly no longer with us, passed in 2005. But Michael Coles was also in Doctor Who and the Daleks, which of course was directed by my good brother in all but name, father, Gordon Flemyng. So Jace's dad, he played Ganatas. He was like one of the kind of alien leaders in that. He also did an episode of The Professionals. And he kind of stopped acting in the 90s. I think the last thing he did was Daisel and Pascoe. I mean, he could well have ended up touring in regional theatre, or maybe he made enough money to knock it on the head. Who knows? But he, he passed away in 2005. Only married once in the 60s. So he was one of them. The one with the really evil grin, who is the guy who shoots everybody in the junkyard. I had some difficulty identifying that actor because he doesn't have a headshot. on IMDb, which was kind of annoying. But I think he's in the credits. He's listed as like Johnson's assistant or something. Let me just check. Johnson's henchman, Chris Dillinger, but there are two of them, of course, because there are three of them in that unit.
Yeah.
Altogether. So he, Chris Dillinger, was also in Moonraker, and also 2 episodes of The Professionals. No surprise. I think everybody that was in this probably ended up being in The Professionals at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, other cast members of note. Oh, Colin Welland. We talked about Colin Welland, of course, who played the reporter. You had Joe Mellier, who played Ronnie Brent. Kind of
That's it.
Bit of overacting there, if I'm honest. But he was in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Last thing he did was in the 90s, Born to Run. He was in 5 episodes of the Ghostbusters of East Finchley, if you remember that. He did an episode of Minder. Did he do The Professionals? I'm gonna bet money that he did, but
Oh, wager he did, yeah.
he did Last of the Summer Wine, Crown Court. Pretty regular jobbing actor. Episodes of The Goodies, Anthony and Cleopatra, but I don't see The Professionals. Damn. He must have been moaning to his agent, like everyone else has been on it. Why can't I go on it?
Yeah.
You overacted in the Sweeney. I told you to play it down a bit.
It was either excuse me, it was either Professionals or Minder, wasn't it? Those were the kind of key shows.
Yeah. They were very much staple of the early 80s. Hey, Jacob Ironside, how's it going? He loved John Thor in Inspector Morse. That was a show that I never personally took to. I think I preferred Taggart, whereas Inspector Morse was kind of all set in the country with villages and churches and shit.
It was
wasn't
in
it?
Oxford.
Yeah, it all felt a bit posh and twee. And then it was a toss-up between that or Taggart. You know, set in kind of Glaswegian council estates with dead hookers and things. And I was like, yeah, this is
murdered.
Yeah.
Hey,
where's Spencer? Enjoy the show, guys. Thank you very much. So yeah, I mean, okay. So the things that are good about this movie are it is a real snapshot of gritty London in the 1970s. It's a real snapshot of the very male-dominated work, the sort of police world of the time and the flying squad.
Yeah.
You've got the architecture, you've got the cars. It's the acting in this is a mixed bag. As I said in the first scene, there's some really bad acting. I'm sorry, but I think the girl that they murder, have to say, she weren't great. They probably auditioned her and went, yeah, give her that part. She's going to die in the first reel. So I might be being a bit unkind there. But you do have some people that are really good. I think all of the Johnson guys are pretty good. They're pretty mean and, you know, but then you have that shot of them in the taxi at the end and they're all kind of laughing and smiling out the window. I mean, I don't know. There are some, on the one hand, some elements of this are really gritty and real and feel very grounded. And then there's some other elements of it that feel very stagey. I don't think it quite breaks its television roots. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Having said that, I do like it. I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, this is, you know, it's a time capsule. I think if you're looking at any contemporary piece from, you know, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s, you know, it's interesting to see the locations, especially when they are using real locations. You know, the locations for this, I mean, were real shitholes, to put it bluntly, because that's what London was. It was a dirty, dirty place. It was, you know, it hadn't really had, the gentrification of the East End or the Docklands areas at the time. It was, it was on its way, but it was, quite a number of years away.
Mm.
But it was still very much, left. There was a lot of stuff left over from the war. There was still a lot of bomb sites. There were lots of areas that hadn't been developed, and what was developed in the 50s and 60s were just these awful concrete structures, and of course they weren't built particularly well either. Almost all of them haven't lasted. But as I say, it's a time capsule. I think if you're really watching a contemporary movie of a particular period, it's not just a time capsule. You're actually, it's a time machine, if you like. Because if you're so submerged and immersed in a movie that's been made in a certain period, you're immersed in that period. You're there. You know that it's not something that's been made today and is a period piece, that you can actually see the real world of the time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of its saving graces, this movie, obviously. And certain members of the cast, I love Barry Foster. I think he was a really superb actor. Ian Bannen, another fantastic actor. Dennis Waterman, John Thor, wonderful. You can't go wrong with those pair. Diane Keane, absolutely adorable. Yeah, I liked it. It just felt like a slightly extended episode of the TV show. It didn't feel particularly cinematic, so I certainly agree with you on that.
Yeah.
It was really an extension of the TV show.
Anthony Scott, who is on the right, who is the guy that he's driving the taxi. This shot just really annoyed me. They're all just grinning. It's like, if you were carrying out a hit, you wouldn't do that. You'd fire the round and you'd be off. But anyway, but yeah, Michael Coles, we just talked about. Anthony Scott passed away in 1983 at the age of 49.
Dear, oh dear.
Yeah, and I, from what I can tell, a victim of the AIDS epidemic.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Yeah. So his last work was on 2 episodes of Minder. Yeah. So he also had he had a tiny part in Superman. Did an episode of Department S, which
wow.
Yeah, that was kind of before my time, but obviously it was at the peak of Inside Man's childhood. He did an episode of that show called 1990 that was made in the 70s. A dystopian future. Do you know what? I can't quite like to watch that now, which was with Edward Woodward. So vaguely remember that being on, but I never saw it because I think I was too young to stay up. And
I don't recall. I don't remember it at all.
Yeah, it's in his credits anyway. If you
okay, yeah,
check it out.
It's one to look out for.
There's Barry Foster, Ian Bannen. Yeah, I mean, I think it's got a very downbeat ending. Structurally, it's okay, but I just think, I mean, like, for example, John Thor's character, when they take him off the street, when they kidnap him, they've just killed these other guys. The whole palaver of them, filling him up with alcohol and putting him back in his car behind the wheel. They could have just killed him and dumped him anywhere. I mean, it's just sort of, it's got a lot of holes in the cheese.
Yeah, I mean, that was one where I thought credibility was stretched, just a little too far. And I thought exactly the same thing. Look, you are ruthless killers. You are killers for hire. You are protecting a certain person, and the one person that's going to bring that person down, all you're doing is, chucking bottles of Jack Daniels down his neck and sticking him behind a wheel. Wouldn't it be better to, unless they were thinking, we have to make this look like it's an accident.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. that's the idea, but
they
you would have been.
could have been a little bit more imaginative than that.
Well, I mean, if you were going to make it look like an accident, you just chuck him back in the car and then throw the car in the river.
Yeah.
With him trapped inside it, and he's going to drown, and it's a bit more guaranteed as opposed to popping him in the car and letting him drive off. It's like, but yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's got some good scenes, and I think the scenes with the killers are pretty good. This guy looking over here, right? This in the taxi. For some reason, he looks like Liberace in this shot.
Hi, George.
And what's going on there? Yeah, but and there's this big sort of action scene at the beginning, which has got the man with club on the right top poster where they kind of foil a robbery.
Yeah.
Don't get the shooters out unless you have to, kind of.
Yeah.
That whole sequence, I remember that. If I remember rightly, that's playing on the television in the rec room in the movie Scum.
How bizarre is that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's that scene. And then that same scene also gets played in an episode of, I think it's Dodger, Bonzo and the Rest.
Yeah.
And the kids haven't got time to watch that whole video. Somebody starts fast forwarding it or something. I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because we'll talk about this. We'll compare the two films in a minute, but they are two quite different movies in lots of ways. What would you give the first one out of 10?
I mean, I can comfortably give it a 6, maybe a 6.5.
Yeah, I have to give it a 6. Hey, Wes, thank you very much for that, man. I do get on there occasionally, and Drinker's very gracious about supporting smaller channels, but I'm lucky enough to know him outside of YouTube as well, which is nice. Thank you for coming and supporting my channel, mate. I really appreciate it. Do check out the industry interviews. You'll like those. Yeah, I think I'll give it the same, 6 out of 10. It is a time capsule. That's what makes it interesting. There are some scenes that are really great that could have almost been filmed yesterday, and then there's some other stuff which is like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, there was a line that Regan says to Diane Keane's character when he finds out that she's a lady of the night, let's just say, or
I hang about with a lot of tarts.
Yeah, I hang about with a lot of tarts. I've known a lot of tarts, love, and you don't seem to be like one of them. And it was like, what?
You're a bit too nice to.
A bit too nice to be a tart.
Yeah. I mean, well, of the era, shall we say? But that's how coppers talked back then.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on to Sweeney 2. I'll dare to play a little bit.
Cool, look at that. Shouldn't be allowed. Look, there's another one, look.
Why don't you belt up? I am a member of Scotland Yard's famous flying squad.
This is Detective Sergeant Carter, Flying Squad.
Just stay where you are!
Now, I mean, from a plot point of view, overall, I much prefer Sweeney 2. Always have. But it's got some massive flaws that really let it down, in my view. I'll come on to what I think those are.
Yeah.
In a little bit. But so in a nutshell, if you haven't seen it, and I'll try and avoid too many spoilers, well, it's a sequel to the last film. They made it about a year later because the first one made a ton of money, so it was rushed into production, I suspect, probably without a completed script, more likely concepts. And John Thor's old boss, who's played in the film by Denholm Elliot, who, as far as I'm aware, didn't ever play his boss in the TV show, did he?
No, he didn't. No.
Which kind of is a shame. It would have been anyway. He's going to court for corruption charges because he got into trouble gambling, and he wants Regan to be a character witness for him. But Regan's a lot of things, but he's not bent, and he basically says, you know, if you're going to put me in court, I'm just going to have to tell it how it is. That's the kind of the beginning setup of the movie. So as a last request, his boss says, look, I want you to do one thing. I want you to take down this firm that's robbing these banks. And there's a firm of bank robbers that are doing these kind of strange robberies in a way, very kind of aggressive, high profile. The main culprit is known for using a pair of a golden Purdy shotgun, sawn-off shotgun. But they always take a specific amount of money. They leave any extra behind, which, by the way, makes absolutely no sense and is a massive plot hole. And this gang of robbers, they are all British and they live on the island of Malta, where they've gradually built their own sort of luxury home where they all live with their wives and their children. And then so they're put in charge of tracking them down. They know that once they identify one of the robbers, they know that he's got a lover who lives in the UK still, who is also affiliated with an antiques dealer who specializes in Nazi memorabilia. Now, that actress, by the way, who is Anna Gale, that is the wife of actor Adrian Dunbar.
Well, I'll be.
Yeah, I know, right? I was proper shocked to learn that myself.
Me.
Yeah, that's Adrian Dunbar's wife. Well, so, the main and sort of bad guy protagonist is played by Ken Hutchinson. I'll do a full cast breakdown in a minute, but he was also the bad guy in Ladyhawke with Rutger Hauer and Michelle Pfeiffer. He is the sort of the main henchman of the priest, who's played by John. Is it John Woodhouse? Is that the name of the actor? Fantastic.
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm afraid, mate.
I'll check on that.
I've seen Ladyhawke once.
I really like it. Big fan of that movie. I used to have the soundtrack on vinyl, but I think I gave it to my first girlfriend because I don't seem to have it.
Oh no!
I know. Yeah.
No. Oh.
The things you do for love. John Wood. Yeah, I was pretty close. John Wood plays the bishop. Ken Hutchinson plays Marquis, who is his kind of number one henchman. And so I wasn't really familiar with Ken Hutchinson as an actor until I saw Ladyhawke. And I probably saw Sweeney 2 just before that, and they look so different in the two films, his characters. I would not have recognized him from Sweeney 2. But it's quite violent, but not as violent as the first film. There's several robbery sequences, or 3, and then there's also one that we don't see, which kind of happens off camera. This all builds up to a final robbery, which then 2 of the main guys escape. They track them down. they corner them. There's a pretty grim confrontation. There's a middle segment involving the defusing of a bomb, which actually I quite like that segment, even though
Yeah,
it's nothing to do with anything to do with the rest of the movie.
nothing to do with it.
It's completely unrealistic.
Yeah.
But I do. I'll say why I like it in a minute. But it's nonsense though. Just give me your sort of initial thoughts of Sweeney 2.
Well, there is one thing that you and I are going to differ on completely, and that is that that I do prefer Sweeney to Sweeney 2, and here's why. Although Sweeney 2 is considerably more violent, which is fine by me, you know, I liked all of that. I kind of felt like, do you know what? I'm actually going to agree with what you said. You mentioned something a few minutes ago and said that you had an idea that it appears that they entered this with a concept rather than a completed script.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think you're right on that. It looks like it. It kind of feels a little bit cobbled together. There are certain things that just don't match. There's quite a bit of padding. You know, although I do like the bomb diffusing section. You know, in the middle, it breaks the film up. It takes you away from the story going absolutely anywhere. The only continuity you've got is them pissing it up in the bar. That's the only kind of continuity,
which is the bit that makes that whole scene work. It really reminds me of that scene in the Dad's Army movie where they've got the Germans cornered in the church, and the army turn up, but they don't want to take responsibility. They're saying, well, this sounds like a job for the Navy. So we're gonna, and then the Navy turn up and they say, this sounds like a job for the Air Force. So then they get them, and then the Air Force people, this sounds like a job, and it's everybody sort of ends up in the bar drinking. No one's really sure if it's a legit bomb, but somehow Dennis Waterman ends up going up there to defuse it. That feels like that scene was probably like written for an episode of the TV. And somehow ended up being transposed.
Do you know? I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe, they're looking at discarded scenes. Or what about that episode where we wanted to do this and where we wanted to do that? Oh, yeah. Why don't we take that and then put that in? And it does feel a kind of a little bit of a rush job. But there are some good performances, and the aftermath of the big blag at the near just not far from the start of the movie. That's pretty well done.
I've never seen so many dead people.
Yeah, and it's it's good. It's not, it just doesn't do as much for me as the first one does, because I think it flows a little bit better. I think the first one flows a little bit more for me. There was a little too much sentimentality in terms of the lives of the villains, the kind of life of the villains in Malta. I thought, and I don't know, it just didn't connect with me. But then we all like different things. We all watch different things and get different things out of different movies. This is just me personally. I just felt that it was padded quite substantially to extend its running time. I think it's 104 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, it is. It's 104 minutes.
Yeah, and I think the first one is about 89.
89, I think.
Yeah. So although it's not that much longer than the first movie, I think that, it does feel padded. I just wasn't keen on the Malta stuff. I thought that was just felt like that was sort of dropped in. I don't think we needed to see any of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, so Here's what if when you think about it, the plot for this
Mm.
is not a million miles away from the plot of the movie Heat.
Yeah.
There's two narratives in this
Yeah.
story, and it's not uncommon in shows like The Professionals and similar formats to this, where you have two narratives. You have the bad guys narrative, so that the audience kind of has a sense of what the bad guys, who they are, what their objectives are, and what their mission is, and so on. And you have your main characters' narratives, and obviously they're trying to stop the bad guys. Just by the way, just to clarify, Anna Nye, and I'm not sure how you pronounce her surname. It's Nygh, who plays Shirley Hicks. So she plays the sort of woman who does the dance on the car in that video sequence. That's Adrian Dunbar's wife, not Anna Gale, who is the
Right.
woman holding the kid in the Malta scenes.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I think I got the names the wrong way round, but I knew who I meant. But I want to clear that up for the sake of fact on the stream. And Anna Nye, I think, is still alive. Anna Gale passed in 2022, but I didn't mind you've got the scenes where all the bank robbers are basically sitting around the table. They've got their own personal chef who comes along and cooks all the meals. And the wives are basically living the life of Riley. But, and then I think there are 3 scenes altogether with that narrative. And it's only in the last one, before they go back to London for the last job, where some of the wives kick off and almost offer a bit of protest. I felt, if you watch The Great Bookie Robbery, which is we've got to do a stream on it. It's a brilliant miniseries from Australia from the late 80s. And that's 2 narratives. It's the robber. It's very much the story of the robbers, but it's also the story of the cops who are trying to catch them. The family dynamics with all of the characters in The Great Bookie Robbery are really well done. Really great, very impactful scenes. One of the wives, who's played by actress model Lynn Dirth, who plays Mrs. White. I'll put her on screen in a second. She says the same line in one of her scenes 3 times. And I'm like, could you? I don't know. I'm sure it's not down to her, because she's an okay actor. Could you not have made that scene a bit more, less entrenched kind of thing? Because most of the actors in this are pretty good. You've got some great actors on board the bank robber side, apart from Ken Hutchinson, one of my favourite British character actors, is among them. You've also got George Innes from The Italian Job as one of the coppers. The British squad on the second Sweeney movie, it's all totally different actors. I don't understand why they didn't port some of them over.
No, I don't understand. Yeah, I would absolutely. I mean, I would have been right on their backs. If I was, from Euston Films. Said, why on earth have you cast all of these people when you have a plethora of actors to choose from that were in the first movie? Why not contract these actors to doing it?
The actor that's you've got Patrick Malderhyde in there. As one of the officers. Brian Hall is in the.
Of course, Brian Hall. Yeah.
Brian Hall. I love Brian Hall. He sadly passed away of cancer relatively young.
Yeah.
Always rated him as an actor. He was the chef, wasn't he, in 40 Towers?
40 Towers. Just quickly about Brian Hall. Do you remember there was a children's BBC series back in the late 70s, early 80s, where he played he played a father of this boy, and he was quite a bully of a father, and it turned out that the reason he was a bully, that was his father used to bully him,
Right.
And it was a really intense children's program, and he played it absolutely brilliantly. I mean, it was only, like I say, it was a kids show, and remember some of the kids TV shows in the UK in the late 70s, early 80s were actually pretty grim.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Probably darker than a lot of the adult shows. But I can't remember what it was called, but it was absolutely superb, and he was brilliant in it. And you're right. I mean, I completely agree. I rate him. I rate him as an actor. Really rate him as an actor.
Yeah, I mean, he plays one of the gang in the Long Good Friday.
Yes, he does.
Almost like the same character.
Yeah.
The other thing that Sweeney 2 is notable for is Nigel Hawthorne comes in, and actor I absolutely loved. Of course, most people will know him from Yes Minister. But he comes in and plays like the new boss, and he's only in a few scenes, but he's really good. The other actor that I really liked, and one of the things I did like about Sweeney 2 is I thought the comedy was quite good. It had some pretty funny jokes, most of which landed. There was a couple that didn't, but I like it when his driver's been shot in the foot, so Regan gets a new driver, and I've been trying to find the name of the actor who plays him, and I've struggled. And the actor
goes, "What's that?"
Yeah,
that's my lunch, sir.
An apple.
It's an apple.
What's that? It's my lunch, sir. And he's like, he opens up the side thing and he says, "Where have all the snacks gone? I'm a vegetarian, sir. I want that filled up with Mars bars, crisps, and ham sandwiches. The sort that come in a plastic wrapper.
Sausage rolls.
Sausage rolls, yeah.
And when you go to lunch with the boys, they're going to be having hamburgers and frankfurters."
Yeah. I mean, that is pretty funny.
Yeah.
You've got Derek O'Connor also in the squad.
Yeah.
So he very well known British character actor, sadly no longer with us, passed in 2018. I met him I think at the National Theatre. He did a play with somebody I knew. Now he was in Deep Rising with Jason Flemyng. He played the captain of the ship, if you remember. The one that puts an axe in someone's head, like right near the beginning.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a role in Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, but I think I probably fell asleep by the time his role came up. He did episodes of Alias. I mean, he as an actor, he as a British sort of character actor, he had quite the international career. He had little roles in other things like End of Days, and did a lot of British television, of course. And he was also had a role in Lethal Weapon 2. So yeah, I always thought he was sort of good in anything he was in. Yeah, so Derek O'Connor, here he is. So he's just one of the sort of general squad. I don't know if you noticed this as well, but I'm not sure if like the budget of the costume department was short on this film, right? But did you notice how some of the same coppers, right, in different scenes, ended up wearing the same jackets?
No, I didn't. No.
Right. So there's one of these particularly kind of, because the 70s was really great for really sort of horrible anoraks.
Yeah.
And there's this horrible kind of blue anorak with these chevrons on the sleeves and on the shoulders.
Yeah.
That one of the coppers is wearing. And then in a different scene, that's an interesting double bill, Convoy and Sweeney 2. And then in a different scene, one of the other actors has got the same jacket on, like one of the other coppers. And I'm like, wow, was it that stingy on set? Probably was. Save money anywhere, anyhow.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I mean, okay, so I've got some other issues with the film. So going back to what I was saying about this, the storyline is basically similar to Heat. What I would have liked to have seen is, rather than these guys sort of sitting around casually saying, "Oh, there's a crack in the swimming pool," we're going to need 25 grand to fix that. I mean, in a way, I know that's kind of all we need. But one of the things about this group is that if it's established after the first robbery, if one of their own men gets injured, they kill them, so they don't talk. And I just think the dynamic that would then cause with the remaining widows that are living in this sort of compound in Malta. And what do those women do all day as well? Do you know what I mean? They were very sort of thinly drawn characters. And I would have liked to have seen a proper argument with them all, demanding, this is the last time you go away. And then, and of course, one of the women is actually responsible for grassing them up. She makes that phone call, doesn't she? Yeah. So there's a lot of convoluted elements there that of themselves are quite interesting, but don't quite gel or aren't fully explored to the degree that they should be. Then for some reason, in one of the robbery scenes, one of the robbers' cars explodes out of a window of a shop front for reason that I can actually determine would be logical. How did it get there? How did they? What route did they take to come out of that shop? That makes no sense. And then in the final thing, where they had to get that new driver for the second car, they swerve to avoid an ice cream van. They go through a billboard. They end up in some waste ground, and they crash into a mound of dirt. Not a severe crash, but that crash seems to have killed the driver, the guy in the passenger seat, and the guy in the back has critical injuries. And I just, but like, all they did was like hit into a mound of, crash into a mound of dirt. I mean, maybe they didn't have time to put their seatbelts on, but that whole sequence to me is just totally convoluted. Also, like when they're chucking the money out the window, down to the car, and that's kind of cool. Like some of it ends up on the road and stuff like that. And then there's this thing where they always take whatever money they need, but leave X amount behind, like 50 grand or 25 grand or whatever. Why? Why do they leave it behind? If they know that they're going to come, if they know that there's more expenses ahead and they're going to come back and do another job, because at one point they change cars and Hill turns around and says, no, we've got 62 grand. You can leave the bag with the other money in it. Why? We can take it with us now, and then we've got more money to. That makes no sense. That's just utter bollocks in the plot.
It was a ludicrous plot hole. Just utterly ridiculous.
And I think like, then there's the whole scene with him sitting on the rocks with the golden shotgun and acting moody, and then he shoots some fish and then waves to the fisherman. I just thought, nah. What I wanted to see was, this has got to be the most unprofessional team of bank robbers ever. So is that side of it, because the scene where they're holed up at the end, and the two of them they track them down to those digs, and one of them comes running out and all the lights come on. That's all really quite impactful. But it's all over really quickly. The guy just like tops himself and stuff. He would have gone out fighting, you would have thought. So it's like there's a mesh of ideas, but I feel like there were too many cooks with this. Doesn't feel like one person had a solid grasp on it, or maybe it was just rushed. And
it doesn't feel like it was really thought through. I mean, out of the two, I don't feel like this one sort of belonged with the series. I think this is, this could have just been a more standalone movie. I don't think you really needed to know who the characters were. This
could have been way better than the first movie, because it's got the seeds of the idea of them
Agreed.
tracking down this kind of very
Agreed.
high active bank robbing crew who are actually based in Malta and only come over on the odd occasion is a great idea.
Yeah.
But
And I agree. I mean, I think if you'd added another 10 minutes onto the running time of the movie, stripped all the padding out, and just rewritten some of those scenes and sequences, and adding what else was necessary, I think you could have had something completely acceptable. I don't know. I just I can't get on with this movie as much as I can the first one. I think maybe it's to do with the running time. Maybe it's just me. Really kind of harping back to the TV show because it was only an hour show, or with commercials, what 45 minutes, 48 minutes, something like that. Maybe it's just me. It's just so many things about this one that just didn't ring true. I think that you're right to say about the money thing, the money plot. I mean, that's what bank robber in their right mind would say? Okay, we got 50 grand. There's 10 grand there. Let's leave that 10 grand and leave it in the car.
Yeah,
we
only
need 50 grand.
I don't know. The only reason for that might be, and if so, it wasn't properly explained, that when they're flying back to Malta, there might have been a legal amount of money you could bring into the country every time. But even if that was the case, you would still take the money and stash it, go and dig a hole on Wimbledon Common and bury it under a tree or something.
Yeah. So everything extra that they weren't allowed to bring back, they would have been able to come back and not put themselves at risk by doing another job if they'd accumulated enough money, that they could legally bring back to Malta.
Yeah, I mean, I just, just risk it, put it in. But also, there's enough of them traveling separately. I don't know. That bit was, as Leslie Halliwell said, there isn't even an exciting climax. Well, there's a great setup for an exciting climax that isn't really properly explored. I did like the scene where they're all watching the video for the car, and then the girl comes on, Adrian Dunbar's wife, does her striptease, Anna Nye, forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And one of the guys has got a line, and he says, "It's all been hand tool, it's tool machined by hand."
Oh yeah, it's all been tooled by hand. Yeah,
tooled by hand. Yeah, which is a line from some car commercial around that time, Voigt Spring Technic or something. And that lands really well, and it felt like it was improvised.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think one of the things that this film does better than the first one is it's got a good balance of humor in it. There are some really funny lines, and there's good banter with the team of actors that are playing like the squad. Maybe they just gelled better or something, but
you're spot on. Yeah, you're right. The first one is completely devoid of humor. There's no humor in the first one at all.
No. But I think the things that are missing from it are
Diane Keane. Diane Keane is missing from there.
Diane Keane would have been nice to have been in it, but she was killed in the first movie, so no chance of that. No, I think we should have seen. I think the movie should have started with the first robbery, and we should have seen a robbery, but not got who was behind it. The whole thing with Dennis Waterman's car, or whatever his character's called, George Carter's car ramming and stopping one of the other vehicles, which led to the driver of that car being killed, the hostage being taken to hospital. She subsequently dies because the stakes of that action were so high. We needed to see that. We needed to see that attempted stop it. And I mean, you'd want to set that up so that he doesn't know that there's a hostage in the car. Things like that. So his guilt is ambiguous.
Yeah. And also, I
know.
think the Denholm Elliot, the Denholm Elliot stuff, I think was completely irrelevant. Really, I mean,
It was. That's just a way of getting a big name actor in it, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was. I think it would. Maybe they were thinking, we got to show that there has been a little bit of a corruption in the police, so we have to make it realistic. So we're going to have one of their senior officers.
That was actually timed, because that was literally as the film was shooting.
Yeah,
that was when that guy went down from the flying squad. So I think they wanted to kind of reflect that.
Yeah, have it sort of topical. I think it didn't really fit in terms of the movie. It didn't drive anything. I mean, they tried to make it drive the plot by saying, this is the previous Gav's last wishes before he was sent to Chokey.
I mean, the way that you should have written that, and I mean, sorry for me being a screenwriter and jumping in, but it's fucking obvious to me. You start the film with a robbery. You cut to a briefing scene, which Denholm Elliot's character is overseeing. He's the top guy. Several people have died in this robbery. The stakes are really big. Pressure's on. He's in the middle of giving his briefing when suddenly, the equivalent of internal investigation, special branch, whoever, come in and arrest him in front of all of his men and cart him off. And during that scene, he turns around and says, "You take over, Jack. The case is yours. Make sure you get these guys." And that's how you set that up. And you tie that in with the first robbery, and you've got your big briefing scene, so everybody on the squad is introduced. I mean, that's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of 101, really, isn't it? It's standard. It's what you would. That would be the satisfying way of playing it. But I just think it was very choppy. It was kind of all over the place.
I think this was rushed into production really fast, because it came out in April, right? 1978.
Blimey.
The first film. Hold on. See if we can get the release date for that here. I don't know where that information is on IMDb. I know the first film was released in 77. It was filming the end of season 3, so it would have shot in 77 because season 4 was 78. So quite fast turnaround times, I'm guessing. So I think Sweeney 2 must have been rushed really quickly. Troy Kennedy Martin, I'm guessing Ian's brother, was the writer. Sadly, also no longer with us. And born on the island of Bute in Scotland. I've been there. Now, he also wrote several episodes of Z-Cars. And he drafted a political thriller script called Magnox, which ultimately was turned into Edge of Darkness.
Oh, right. Okay.
Now, that was good. That would be another good chew the fat for us to do at some point.
Yeah.
Edge of Darkness with Bob Peck.
What a wonderful actor Bob Peck was.
Yeah. Well, Bob Peck it reported because they had a big argument, didn't they, about the ending of Edge of Darkness, and he's reported to have vetoed the script ending and just said, "I'm not turning into a fucking tree," which I thought was pretty funny.
Nice one, Bob.
Yeah. I mean, Troy Kennedy Martin was also one of the people, because he did a couple of little acting jobs. He was one of the people in Michael Caine's gang in The Italian Job.
Right. Okay.
He also wrote the screenplay for Bravo 20.
Oh, really?
Now, I'll tell you what, a good episode of Chew the Fat would be to do Bravo 20 and the one that got away.
Of course, yeah.
The two different movies and two different interpretations of those events. And watch them both again and talk about them. I've actually got Bravo 20 on DVD.
Yeah, I think I've got that too.
I mean, we're going down a bit of a rabbit hole here, but just on that topic, which do you think is more accurate? Chris Ryan's or?
It's well, I mean,
hard to know, isn't it?
It really is. It really is hard to know because I mean, I don't know whether you've seen the Michael Asher documentary. I read the Michael Asher book. Yeah,
I found that fascinating.
It's very, very interesting.
But I think you have to approach that with some modesty as well.
Of course, because making a documentary, you have to have your own narrative. You have to have your own agenda. Documentary making is no different to filmmaking or making a TV show. But also, there's an interesting book by Peter. Oh, crikey, I can't remember his name. It's called Eye of the Storm.
Yeah, vaguely rings a bell.
Peter. Oh, I wish I could remember his name. But that also, that also kind of pours a little bit of cold water onto both of the testimonies of, both Andy McNabb and Chris Ryan.
Is it? No, it's not. No, Paul McCartney's written a book called Eye of the Storm, which I'm assuming is. Is it the one that's written by Peter Ratcliffe?
Ratcliffe, that's it, Peter Ratcliffe. Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Eye of the Storm, 25 years in action with the SAS.
Yeah. And he does mention an awful lot in that book as well.
About Bravo 20.
About the Bravo 20 mission, yeah.
Yeah. I get the impression that Andy McNabb was a bit of a dick, but I mean, who can say? I've not met the guy. I mean,
that's right. Yeah. I mean, we, they say, I don't like the phrase of, everybody has their personal truth. I mean, it's, that's more that's really opinion rather than a reality. But who's to say exactly what it is? I mean, maybe some things were embellished by the publishers, and they had said to them, we need you to stretch this out. We need you to add these things in. But nonetheless, there's no question that these men endured an awful lot. There's no question that that they're deserved, decorated members of special forces. Not just for this, but other missions, other prime missions, and missions after as well.
I think the thing with the Michael Asher documentary, that whilst I do think he probably hit a few kernels of truth, no member of the Iraqi army or Iraqi civilian is going to go on camera and say, "Oh yes, they shot 30 of our guys."
I said exactly the same thing as you.
Of course, they're not.
I said exactly the same.
Now, I think the herder and his father, they were quite credible, but the guys that were interviewed who were at the checkpoint, I didn't find them credible at all.
No, I mean, you have to remember that this was just post Desert Storm, so so Saddam Hussein was still leader of the Ba'ath Party, the Republican Guard was still very, very active in Iraq.
I mean, do you want your family to get murdered or what? It's like, I mean, it couldn't really be reliant.
But I think that's an interesting idea to do both of those. Bravo
we should do both of them, and we can combine it with the documentary. So there we go. Stephenzo, if you're listening, get me that thumbnail. So, all right, let's wrap this one up. Sweeney 2. I mean, my final thoughts on it are this. I mean, I've got it. I've got a physical copy of it, and it's funny when I bought it and I watched it again, because it'd been a while, been about 15, probably longer, 20 years. Because of course now I'm a pretty accomplished writer and script writer and playwright and so on. When I was watching it, I was really quite hard on it. I was like, man, these fucking flaws are terrible. And of course, the other thing was, you know, the kid with the skateboard who comes down and takes the gun, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure there must have been a script where that kid comes in and either hands the gun over to the police, or they hear about it and they find him and they track him down and they get the gun. Otherwise, why is it in there?
Yeah.
And I wanted to find out, so I tracked down that kid on Facebook. He's called Sebastian Whitkin.
Right.
And I found him and I messaged him about an hour before we went live.
Yeah.
It took me ages to find him, and I'm waiting to hear back from him. If he'd replied,
interesting.
If he'd replied, I would have got him to come on the stream straight away and said, "Look, we want an answer. You know, what was the skateboard shotgun subplot, man? You know, we want an answer to this." Yeah. So you know, there is stuff like that. It definitely, it feels like it was written in a rush. It was partly shot on the hoof, and I think that they shot what they needed. Yeah, the Malta stuff. If the film had been written properly, you could have probably got rid of all the Malta scenes. But I think there was clearly either a tax break or there was definitely a funding thing that is why they went to Malta. Not to mention the free holiday.
Yeah.
I mean, also kind of interesting that the plot involved quite a lot of attractive actresses of the time having to go to Malta to shoot those scenes. So there we are. You know, a few wives and girlfriends of people involved there, I'm pretty sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So really sad that the actress I mentioned earlier, who actually, you know, some people, you're just like myself and the Inside Man, are just born good looking, and when you put the camera on us, you know, the camera just loves us. And then there are people like Lynn Dirth where that actually really does apply, and she was one of them. She's the one who says one of her lines 3 times. If you look her up, there's some incredible pictures of her online. She went to RADA, and she committed suicide at 47. What a tragic loss. She did a few things, didn't have an amazing career. I wonder if that was the reason. I mean, who knows? But you know, but at least she got to go to Malta and film Sweeney too. So yeah, so I'll tell you what, the next Chew the Fat we're going to do, let's do that. Let's do the Gulf War 91, wasn't it? They were both set in.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Gulf War 91 stream.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Really good idea.
Bravo 20. And I think those are the only 2 adaptations of that story plus the documentary. I think they're the only things that I can think of that have been made about that topic.
Certainly about that mission.
That mission,
but or rather the Bravo 20 mission. There have been some docudramas. But you know, and they all seem to be sort of much of a muchness, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely would be interesting. I haven't watched the one who got away in quite a long time, and I vaguely recall that they went into production and came out within like 6 months of each other or something. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
Because wasn't it the one that got away? Wasn't it Paul McGann?
Paul McGann, that's right. Yeah, Paul McGann.
because there's that scene with David Morrissey plays Andy McNabb, and he's like shouting from his prison cell, "We're gonna get medals for this, lads, medals!" Which I thought was a little bit cheese.
Yeah.
I mean, may have happened, maybe it didn't. Who knows? I seem to recall that, having read various books about people being in prison, your primary concern is to make sure your teeth don't fall out. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that there was competition, I think, to get one out before the other, if I remember rightly.
Yeah. Much, I'm sure, like the competition with between the two authors, and they're both actually very, very good authors, both Andy McNabb and Chris Ryan.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to be honest with you, I'm actually quite a fan of Andy McNabb's Nick Stone series. I think they're really quite good, especially the later ones. Yeah, they're really quite interesting.
Probably because he became a better writer, I suppose, as he
Yeah,
went along.
yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
interesting, look, that the director of Bravo 20 is none other than Tom Clegg, who also directed Sweeney 2.
How about that, eh?
Yeah.
How about
So,
that?
yeah, if you look at the credits on IMDb, because he did a lot of the Sharp episodes as well, didn't he?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, from what I remember, and I owned both of these on VHS for quite a while, I thought they were both quite good in their own way. And it was really interesting to see two different takes on the on the same narrative.
Yeah.
I massively rate this actor, Richard Graham. Really like him as an actor, just generally. Do you recognise him? Been in loads.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
He was in An Ungentlemanly Act. He's one of the Royal Marine Commandos that's defending that beach with the bikes.
Yeah.
You know, and they've got like a GPMG.
Yeah.
And three SLRs between them, and a couple of bikes to defend a beach. You know.
Yeah. I haven't seen that for a while. I'll have to dig that out and watch that again.
Great film. Geordie, leave the gun and bloody run. Yeah, he's just a really good actor. I forgot he was in My Beautiful Laundrette, along with my pal Stephen Marcus, who's been interviewed on this channel.
Oh, right.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Who I think narrowly avoided having his house burned down because he lives out in the Palisades or near there.
Oh shit!
So he had a close call there with that. Yeah, but we'll definitely do those. Right. Well, we better wrap it up there before I have another coughing fit. Are you appearing anywhere else apart from with me?
No. I did a few brief moments on, as I say, on the Mad Max stream with Northern English Bastard, but no, I'm all yours, as they say.
Oh well, loyalty goes a long way in this business.
That's right. Oh, there's one thing we forgot. There's one we forgot our scores
for Sweeney 2. I mean.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I'd probably rate it about the same as I'd probably rate the first one 6.5, and I'd rate the second one 6.
Yeah.
I don't want to go as low as a 5 because I think there is a lot about the second one that's good, and there's individual scenes and moments that are really good. It's just very choppy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot about it that should be better.
Yeah.
But thank you for reminding me. So I think my final scores are 6.5 for the Sweeney and 6.5 for Sweeney 2. 6 for Sweeney 2.
Yeah, I mean, I like. It sounds like I really don't like it, but I do like it. I like it for the fact that it's Sweeney, it's John Thorne, Dennis Waterman, for Christ's sake. You know, so what's not to like about that? It's it's a hard nut. Kind of grizzled 70s TV come movie, so What's not to like about that? And as you know, I love all my 70s stuff, but
Mm.
it looks better. It's got a much cleaner, clearer look. It looks more cinematic. It's been
Yeah, it
shot
does. That's
shot a
true.
lot more better, and for that, I think I can only give it exactly the same score. It's 6.5. I think I'd say 6.5 for the pair of them personally, but
Right.
yeah, it's worth a watch. It really is worth a watch. It's if you like the Sweeney TV series, or if you like your 70s cop stuff, or if you like looking at London as a shithole in the 70s, and yeah,
Yeah.
these are both worth a watch, even if it's just the one watch.
Well, thank you for those people that tuned in and watched with us. My apologies for my coughing. Hopefully in a few weeks it will have gone. But yeah, we had a couple of new people pop into the chat. It's always nice. Please spread the word. Check out the other content on the channel. I'm sure you'll like the industry interviews. On Sunday, we will be back at 8 o'clock. Probably. I will confirm that with Inside Man,
Yeah.
depending on how my weekend goes. But every Sunday, normally, we'll be breaking down The Shield. We're currently on season 2. Episodes 5 and 6 are next, I believe.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it before, check that out with us on Sunday.
I'm a different kind of cop. We knock down the doors other cops don't want to. Take the fire from every scumbag in town.
They didn't earn it. I don't feel bad about taking it.
All about bringing force down on the street. Why don't y'all take a look at what you got going on under your own roof?
I never put the money above us.
How long you think that's gonna last?
I don't want Vic in our lives anymore.
You're investigating me? Vic Mackey beats suspects. He deals drugs.
And that's just all in one day.
I wonder what he's gonna do tomorrow. Everybody down! Hey, my day's just getting started.